call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Voorhees Township Special Committee meeting of July 29, 2019. Please rise and join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Freeman?
Here.
Mr. Platt? Here. Mr. Rabbit?
Here.
Mayor Vignona?
Here.
Good evening, everyone. This meeting, public hearing, has been specially advertised by the clerk in the designated newspapers for the Township of Voorhees for the purpose of having a public hearing regarding the medical marijuana facility operations in Voorhees Township and strictly soliciting a public input on that particular topic. There will also may be other action that we advertise that can come before committee. And in addition, there will also be a public portion for those items not involved with the main topic here this morning. I'm also advised to tell you that there's exits to either side of you in the back, emergency exits, and there's exits on either side of the Township Committee up front. Please utilize them in the event of an emergency. Also, there's a no smoking policy in the building, and according to state law, cannot smoke in this building, so we'd ask you to observe that as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Just some quick housekeeping. If anybody is here for any PSE&G issues, we have a representative from PSE&G and our police department in a separate conference room down the hall. This is the public comment regarding medical marijuana facility operation in Voorhees Township. The purpose is to receive public comments regarding anticipated requests to cite medical cannabis facilities within Voorhees. No applications have been received by the township, and no determinations to accept or reject those facilities have been made by Township Committee. With the advent of legalized medical cannabis in New Jersey, the members of Township Committee are interested in obtaining candid citizen input and comments on this very important issue. So that's why we are here this evening. We're here to discuss the issue, talk about the issue, and then move forward. We are fortunate tonight to have perhaps the foremost authority on medical cannabis here in New Jersey with us this evening from Archer Law, Bill Caruso. And Bill has been kind enough to come this evening to give us just a little general overview of some of the issues, which will lead into our discussion. So, Bill, thank you. Sure. If you want to take the mic and face the audience, you can do that too.
Sure enough.
Grab one of those if you want.
Make them have to endure looking at me rather than you guys. I appreciate that. Mayor and Council, thank you all for having this forum tonight and for inviting me. To the members of the audience, my name is Bill Caruso. I am currently a lawyer at Archer, and I run the firm's new cannabis practice, which was created a couple years ago. I also run our firm's government affairs practice. But my background in this is both from a policy level and also as your neighbor. First and foremost, I used to live in town. I lived at the club at Main Street with my wife. We were newlyweds. We moved in while we were both working at the time for Congressman Rob Andrews. We met working together as young staff there. Our career, my career, has really tracked the metamorphosis of the medical marijuana program. At the time when I started working for the Congressman in 1997, California had just adopted a very radical new law allowing for the ability to use medical marijuana in California, allow doctors to recommend medical marijuana in California, even though this was illegal at the federal level and remains illegal at the federal level. And so this is tracked now for almost 20 years into this new effort. Fast forward, I left Congressman Andrews and went up to serve at the state level. I worked for Assembly Speaker Joe Roberts, and then for our current Lieutenant Governor, Sheila Oliver, when she was the first African American woman Speaker of the General Assembly. I was her executive director. I was the head of the staff. I wrote the state's first medical marijuana law when I was staff there. It was very controversial in 2009. This was a time where Jersey was at the forefront. Oddly enough, we were in the beginning stages of really being way out in front where the rest of the country was still lagging behind. At the time, it was very patient-centered, but there were a lot of concerns about pushing too fast. There was a crawl, walk, run approach to this, which there should be, I think, generally in a lot of controversial issues. I'm not going to be partisan here. I'm going to be factual. I worked very closely with Governor Christie. I'm on the Democratic side of the aisle, if you couldn't tell from the people I work for. But I worked very closely from a staff perspective with the governor from the opposite party. It was my job to. But Governor Christie had different visions for medical marijuana than the folks that worked on the bill in the legislature. And frankly, where I think a lot of court of public opinion was, at least now, maybe at the time it was different. So the program lagged for a very, very long period of time. For almost 8 years, was never truly implemented in the manner that most of the folks that thought it would, at the time when they voted for this, figured it would be implemented. It just stalled. Wasn't expanded. Patient populations weren't expanded. New diseases that were uncovered weren't expanded. There were two miracles, though, during the Christie era. There were two pieces of statutory change that came. One, to allow PTSD as a permitted disease, and the other was to allow minors, particularly minors with epilepsy, where there's bold treatment out there, or bold research out there now to show that there's profound treatment related to medical cannabis. At the time, minors were banned for this program. And moreover, they weren't allowing edibles because they thought edibles were too akin to something that would be viewed as recreational. Well, we couldn't allow minors to be smoking cannabis, and there weren't a lot of other delivery vehicles. So the law was changed to allow for minors to access cannabis and for edibles to be dispensed to minors and only minors. Fast forward to where we are today. At the time this governor took office, there were only about 15,000 patients in the medical marijuana program in a state of 9 million people. Today, we're over the 50,000 mark. The program has been expanded. That's still not a lot, by the way, but the program has been expanded. And it is easier now for patients that are in hospice, patients that have profound pain management related to chronic diseases, undergoing chemo, and all sorts of other types of ailments that are enumerated in the regulations in this bill to have easier access to medical cannabis. However, unlike some of our peer states, we are nowhere close in terms of allowing for safe, affordable, and effective, and we should say also higher quality. And I don't want to disparage any of the current operators right now. There's 6 that are currently open. There's 6 more coming online as a result of the last round. That's 12 places in the state that you have the opportunity to go buy medical cannabis. They're not easy to get to for a lot of people that are very ill. You look in other jurisdictions like Pennsylvania, which has a much newer program, far, far, far greater number of medical dispensary locations, whether they be standalone retail, and even the ability to have a larger supply. We have a supply problem in our state right now that affects the cost of cannabis. It also affects the quality of what's available for patients. So that's about to change. The state legislature just passed an updated statute. I joke when I say that you be careful breaking your arm, patting yourselves on your back, updating a bill that's really a decade overdue, but they did it. And give credit where it's due, this governor and this legislature on a bipartisan basis came together to update the medical law. And I just pause for a second. I am only going to spend time tonight on talking about medical cannabis. There's an adult use effort, and if questions come up at the end, I'll draw the distinction, but we don't have adult use legally here in New Jersey right now, and it's my understanding the town governing body isn't even considering that because it would be imprudent to do so because we don't have it on the even on the statute. So this is a discussion about the expansion of medical and what it will mean for this community and then beyond. So the state's about to expand. There's a round out right now. There are 3 types of licenses available under this round. Vertically integrated operations, that is everything contained in one roof or under one license. What that means is there are really 3 components to a cannabis facility. You have a grow facility, you have a processing facility, which is akin to manufacturing. It sometimes takes the flower, turns it into oil, or it's taking oil and turning it into other things. And where it deviates from maybe just broad manufacturing and turn into other types of processing where you could be more akin to a bakery or a candy shop. And there's a lot of different innovation where we're seeing people that are in one walk of life that were involved in some type of food processing may be transitioning over to this. There's some skills overlap there. However, there won't be standalone processing endorsements in this round. The third component to these operations is the retail side. So what's available in this round out of those 3 endorsements are the one all combined, vertically integrated, that's one effort altogether, or a standalone grow facility or a standalone retail facility. The state right now is very focused on 2 aspects. Growing for increased supply, that's why you see both the vertically integrated and a separate grow. Although I do believe that this round is going to contain the last endorsements for separate standalone grow. There is concern that while they want to have more, they don't want to have too much, so we have oversupply. That becomes a concern too. So the state has allowed for a limited amount of endorsements now for grow, and I expect those to be the last standalone if you look at what the statutory requirements are in the bill for the amount. There will also be 4 vertically integrated opportunities, 1 in the north, 1 in the central, 1 in the south, and 1 floater. So South Jersey has the opportunity to have as many as 2 winners in the vertical round if you include that floater. The last piece are there are 5 opportunities for retail locations. And again, they're not going crazy right now. 5 in the south, 5 in the central, 5 in the north, for a total of 15 new retail establishments where you will only be retail. There'll be no grow and no processing allowed, and only medical. This is not for adult use. And by the way, I will pause there for a second to just say one thing on adult use. If you've heard that these sites will ultimately be grandfathered, this is the Campbell's nose under the tent, they're going to open up medical and they're going to sneak in the adult use once that law passed, no. The state will allow a medical facility to grandfather in to adult use, provided the town says so. So your town still controls, right? This is a home rule state. No one changed that, and no one intends to change that. So just one other little sidebar on the adult use piece. No one gets to do this Campbell's nose under the tent to come in for medical and then open up for adult use. But let's talk about what this medical is going to mean. This next round is going to provide a significant premium on expertise, particularly if it's a vertically integrated establishment. This is going to be very well put together companies that have established experience in growing and processing cannabis in other jurisdictions, but with an incentive to partner with people here in New Jersey that have other expertise, business, community involvement. There's some law enforcement efforts for security reasons. So there's a marriage opportunity here, and that's what the state's going to be looking for, and that presents opportunities here in our communities. This community has to decide where and what it wants, if it wants medical cannabis. But I can assure you that this community's citizens are already benefiting from medical cannabis. What we have seen in terms of the growth in medical cannabis in the last few years alone has been significant across every age group, every demographic. Doctors now are starting to recognize that one of the impediments to really exploring the benefits of cannabis, and it is not a cure-all drug, but it does have profound medical benefits for a variety of different ailments. The impediment right now has been the lack of research. So one of the things we're going to start to see in this next round is going to be the ability to partner in a variety of different areas with new types of research abilities, not just the pot shop on the corner opportunity. That's what adult use brings you. That's not what this is. Medical cannabis is going to require a doctor-patient board. So there's going to be interactions between doctors and patients that are going to be advising these companies on how to work. You're going to be bringing in national expertise, national funding, national resources to partner with local folks. And what that's going to allow for is an incubator here in our region. The ability to start looking at taking the research engines that exist here in New Jersey already through Rutgers, through UMDMJ, through Rowan, and all the interesting things that are going on at our university level here in New Jersey, not across the border in Philadelphia and not across the border in New York City, but here in New Jersey. and looking at how we can better apply this medicine to patients here in New Jersey. I'll give you an anecdote, and this isn't in New Jersey right now, but CHOP, one of the nation's leading children's hospitals right now, is doing work in cannabis. Now, they can't touch the plant because of federal funding issues. My understanding, I don't know all the bells and whistles around this, and I don't work with CHOP directly, it's anecdotal, but they are working to test the blood of children that are involved in medical cannabis programs to look at different peculiarities in the different blood samples they're taking and track the blood supply. So they found their little shoehorn into this. They can work with blood. They can do blood testing. They just can't touch cannabis. Lots of different medical resources now are trying to find ways in for a lot of reasons, but mostly because they want to understand this drug better. And right now we have more research coming in offshore in Israel, Canada, Colombia, India, which is phenomenal, but it's not here in New Jersey. Jersey's built for this too. We are a pharma research economy, we're a medical research economy, we're an agriculture research economy. We're the Garden State. And so again, through the same institutions, there's varieties and there's abilities to partner here in New Jersey with these types of resources. So for this community, you're lucky, and I'm not saying this because I'm standing in front of them. You have a very thoughtful town governing body that's going to do right by your town. They work very well together, and I think they find what works. This is a community that has tremendous resources and tremendous opportunities. However, you're also a community in transition. I joked, I walked through here for a half hour through this mall. Mayor, I swear I tried to buy something. I was in Moscow, so I was walking around. I wanted to come to you and say, I actually purchased something in town. But this is also a community in transition. So it's not like we can look here and say, you know what, we don't need economic development. We don't need new jobs. I'll shut up because I don't want to go too long, but I want to say one other thing. I said I'm a member of this community. Well, I'm a member next door. I moved out of Voorhees a couple years ago because my wife and I found a house in Berlin. We live in Berlin Borough. My children are 13, 11, and 9. My goal is not to have them succumb to some horrible issue related to opioid overdose, but I know I'm going to deal with that. I know we're going to grapple with that as parents. I want my kids to have the best, just like every parent wants to have the best. I want them to be able to work in a job, in an environment that I think instills in them the proper work ethic, the curiosity to continue in their education, but also to make money, okay? Let's be blunt. We are not doing a great job in New Jersey right now looking at innovative economy. We are not doing a great job of that. We are letting a lot of good things pass us by. And so the criticism might come from the audience and saying, well, okay, Mr. Pot, you're gonna hang your hat on marijuana. I am. I'll tell you why. I see something here, and I have. That's why I got involved at an advocacy level with the NAACP and the ACLU back in 2014. And God bless my firm. I told them as a very new attorney, I want to get involved in this. It's illegal. It's technically unethical. All these things, right? I still want to do it. They're like, go. Stay out of trouble, but have fun. I did this because I want to start bringing in new opportunities in our state. For my kids, for your kids. We have to start looking at things like this. So I picked this. I didn't pick, nuclear fission. I didn't pick green energy. There's a lot of people in this space. I picked this because I watched what other states are doing, but I also picked this because I've dealt with the patient community. And the patient community has been screwed over time and time again. They have not gotten the help that they deserve. And New Jersey is just starting now to come out of that darkness. We have an ability to turn this engine on. I'm going to leave you with this. One of my colleagues just got back. He took his young daughter to Florida for their first Walt Disney vacation. And he sent me a text. He was in a strip mall somewhere, and he goes, there's 2 medical dispensaries in this strip mall in Florida. And I said, really? And he said, how is that even possible? I said, because it's Florida. Jersey doesn't have 2 anywhere close to each other right now. And I'm not sure that we need, like Taco Bell, everyone on every corner. But we do need more right now. And this community has an opportunity to be a part of that. Or if you're not, you have the opportunity to be working in this region in one of these places, or your family might be, or a family member might have the benefit of having closer proximity to medicine that they need. That's what we're talking about here. That's all we're talking about here right now. And I'm happy to answer any questions if the committee would permit me to. If the audience has any, I'm absolutely happy to answer any questions you have. Thanks.
Why don't we open it up to the public? If anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to come up. We just ask that you give your name and address. Come on up. Good evening.
Wrong someone.
Hey, good evening. Larry Schreiber, 39 Manor House Drive, Cherry Hill. Quick question. Will the township allow, as it stands recreational, what are your feeling on, you know, if somebody gets a medical license, and then will you guys grant the recreational?
Too early to tell.
Recreational is illegal.
Yeah.
I understand that.
We
I'm
haven't
saying
we haven't even gotten that far.
barring it I understand barring it passes.
Yeah.
You still don't know.
It's like
All right.
it's like Bill said. It will depend on the facility. It will depend how they're operating. It will depend on the criteria that make sure it's a well-run place. Basically, that's how I would look at it. Hadn't even thought about that yet because we're just nowhere near that right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
But it would depend on the facility.
Maybe to give you a little bit of comfort, and I'm going to direct this to Bill because he'll correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure. But if there was a recreational marijuana bill that's passed, there's a post-passing opt-out period for municipalities, correct?
Under the last version of the statute, yes, there was. But again, there will probably be an updated version of that if it passes in lame duck, and if not, there's going to be a ballot.
Gave like 90 days, 180 days.
But the town would have an opportunity to opt out. But even if it did, even if you decided, well, we missed the deadline, we're just going to do nothing. Anyone that's here right now, if you do cite anyone in town for medical, does not get to automatically come to you and say, hey, we're going to recreational. You have to approve that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome.
My name is AJ Rastogi. I'm a physician and a resident in Voorhees. I'm a board-certified pain specialist, and my practice that we started is called North American Spine and Pain, where we grew from 2 physicians, 2 locations over the last 5 years to 4 states, 18 clinicians, and we're approximately seeing about 100,000 patient visits per year. I myself, I trained at University of Virginia for medical school and University of Penn for my residency and my fellowship. We've tried to create a place where you get true comprehensive pain and spine care. And I think we've done that. And we've been early adopters of anything we can use to reduce or prevent the use of opiates at our practice for our acute and our chronic pain patients. And medical marijuana has been a great advantage. It's been a humongous tool to our practice. There's been, in the early days, a lot of fighting just the stigma among patients who thought medical marijuana was just another form of getting high, right? So we've done better with that. That's gotten less. Myself personally, I've seen tons of patients benefit from it, who, especially patients with GI disorders, Crohn's disease, mesenteric ischemia. I had patients who would get flashes of abdominal pain and would be going to whatever ER they could go to get IV dilaudid because that's what would help them for their visceral pain. It's approved for that type of pain. I would write them letters so that the chief of the ERs at each of these hospitals, which I'm credentialed with, Virtue, I'm credentialed at Jefferson, Princeton Penn Medical Center, Cooper, we had to explain to them this was a specific patient that if they got these meds, they came to your ER, they're not a drug seeker. So when medical marijuana came out, we put these patients on medical marijuana, and for their GI disorders, they did phenomenally well. Their opiate doses went down, their visits to the ER diminished or were stopped altogether, and their quality of life has improved considerably. So if medical marijuana done right, it can really, really help change this landscape of an ever-increasing opiate crisis that we live in. We were helpful in trying to explain to the Board of Health that having a patient come to a doctor every 3 months to get recertified is an increased expense and an inconvenience. So that has changed. Now you only have to go to the doctor once a year once you're established and maintained. And we hope to see further changes so that the cost of medical marijuana at all these dispensaries continues to go down. We've heavily focused on expanding the technology side of it. So we have a genetic test that you can run now on patients. If they take the test, they'll understand which products they will do better with. Things like their CBD to THC ratio, things that a lot of people don't know about, like terpenes. And it will hopefully allow them to pick the right product from the get-go, less trial and error, less expense out of pocket. So for us, this is, it's been a huge benefit, huge help, and we're very, very excited about what the future brings. Happy to talk to anybody, any questions.
Would you ever think you'd be on this path?
Oh my God, no, no. Yeah, the only time I saw it was in college, and it was definitely not for medicinal purposes, right? So yeah, I'm amazed. It's a real change, and to think it all started with the whole hemp and newspaper thing is crazy. Yeah. So any questions?
Doctor, what do you see other practices that take care of pain management? How are they expanding as far as their use is concerned, and what are they doing as far as supply?
So from a pain management specialty standpoint, it's very fractured. You could go to one pain management physician and he or she only dabbles in medication management. You go to another, they only do injections. You go to another, they only do surgery. You go to another, they only do therapy. And so one of the things we try to do is say, going to 4 different doctors doesn't make sense when you're in pain. So if you come to one of our full service locations, you can get all of those services under one roof. And because we all communicate with each other, if you're someone that we think is going to be bettered by medical marijuana, we'll let the other providers know that so they can all talk and we can get a uniform decision. I've had certain practitioners say, I agree with medicinal marijuana, but you can't be on any other sedatives. So that took them off all their pain medications, all their anxiety medications if they're on a Xanax or benzodiazepine, because they were concerned of over-sedation, and they said no drinking whatsoever, which is a little too black and white. And there are benefits to each of these agents, and if you use them appropriately and safely, you might do a better job of treating that patient than if you make them choose between this or that. And so we've seen that a lot. We've seen other providers who just thought that it was still another way for the patient to, become addicted. And so they were somewhat ill-informed about that as well. They thought marijuana is more addictive than opiates, but that's not true. And the number of deaths that occur to opiates is about 12 to 100,000. The number of deaths that occur to marijuana are 0. And this is not to say that marijuana is not dangerous. It does have its dangers. I think driving under the intoxication or the effects of medicinal marijuana or recreational marijuana are things that we're going to have to battle with in the future. But from a just epidemiologic standpoint and population safety, it is a better agent. It's a safer agent than a lot of the things that we use now.
Thank you.
Doctor, I have a quick question. So, and I agree with everything you're saying, and I think it's important that we expand. This is my own opinion, of course. I think it's important that we expand access to patients, and I think there's a lot of validity to it and a lot of benefit to medical marijuana. Having said that, you're going to get folks, one of their retorts, for lack of a better word, is that marijuana is a gateway drug. It's going to lead to all these other things. So what is your response to somebody that says, this is bad for our community, this is bad for our residents because it's simply a gateway drug and it's going to increase dependency on other drugs? And you may not be an expert in that, but I'd like to hear your opinion as to the answer to that.
We're one of the few places where we identify addiction early on because we're doing testing for it, we're ensuring that our patients are compliant, and if they're not, then we're getting to a center where they can get the rehabilitation services that they need. To answer that question, when marijuana is not legal, people will find a way to get it. And when they get it from a non-government sanctioned site. And so that's typically made anywhere. It could be made in someone's countertop. And if that person is already dabbling in making illegal substances, they may be dabbling in making other illegal substances, and you get cross-contamination. So we've had patients in addiction centers test for marijuana, deny that they were taking cocaine, but their urine shows up positive for cocaine or methamphetamines or other harder, more dangerous drugs. The addiction level of opiates, or the likability of an opiate, it's more likable to someone than, say, marijuana. We know that for a fact. And it's not to say that marijuana is not addictive, it's just less addictive. So the idea that it's a gateway drug per se, I think is potentially there if it is not available to the public in a legal manner. But if it is, then you're getting it at a government-sanctioned site. You know that you're getting something that was made, at least the idea is, it's being made responsibly, and it's being made uniformly.
Thank you, Doctor. Very informative. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
a proud resident of Voorhees. Go Vikings!
Anyone else?
Either one. It's fine with you. Good evening.
Right here. My name is Cleo Kirkland. I live at 10 Wood Glen Lane, and I've been a Voorhees resident for about 30 plus years. And also, I've had a knee replacement and a hip replacement, and I played tennis this morning. And I only say that because through all of that, when I had those things done, the first thing they gave me for pain was opioid. And I was a former football player and very rarely took an aspirin. But the opioids that they gave me, it took care of the pain, but it made me foggy, groggy, and all those things. And soon after that, I discovered CBD, for the pain. And as I said before, I have knee replacement, hip replacement, and I played tennis this morning. So I'm a real proponent of it. I've never, until I had the surgery, I never had any interaction with marijuana or any plant like that. But I can testify to what it has done for me as far as pain, because I know that the strong opioids they had me on, and me having never had any of that stuff before would have certainly done some serious damage. But one of the questions I have to ask the committee too is if you're considering a grow facility or a dispensary, have you also considered what area you might want it in? Because I think that would be something that we would need to know sooner versus later.
Yeah, we're actually having our planning board investigate what they think might be appropriate locations, and they've had some potential suggestions. That study will continue if we move forward with any kind of action as to where it would be. We do know that they have recommended certainly that it not be near any churches, schools, parks, fields, daycare centers, or places of worship. So if we do move forward with it, we would, in conjunction with the planning board, pick what would be appropriate places. So yeah, we've thought about that, and we will continue to focus on that.
And they've identified certain areas basically for retail, growing, processing, different, not every facility can do everything.
Right.
So there are certain areas in town that they believe would be better off for this kind of processing or a grow house as opposed to a retail and other areas. And again, they're trying to set them away from all the areas that the mayor just mentioned. For safety reasons and just to make sure that everyone's okay with where they are and they're not going to be any kind of attraction to people who shouldn't be there.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Mr. Kirkland.
Maybe Chad?
I come here today as a resident of Voorhees. My name is Chad Pichel, 7 Fairview Avenue in Voorhees. I come here as a resident and also as a patient, a medical marijuana patient. I've been on the program. I was actually one of the first 100 patients in the state to be registered, and I have MS. I was diagnosed in 2005, and for the first 5 years of my diagnosis, they put me on all sorts of different kind of medications and just sent me out the door. And it wasn't until around 2010 where I actually started to experiment, off the record experiment, and I learned how much it controlled all my symptoms, and from that point on, my life has completely improved. So I don't want to get too personal about it, but moving on to the economic side of this, I didn't look at the budget. I don't look at the budget at all, but I think we would need the extra money that obviously we can get from this. So I think it would be a smart fiscal decision to go along with that. So I just want to add to the record that I am a 100% supporter of it, and thank you all for the opportunity to talk tonight.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you, Chad.
Hi, everybody. Well, my name is Scott Afrime, and I represent a company called the Holistic Center. And my family's here. I'm an accountant for most of my adult life, CFO, and my brother, as some of these things are being talked about and research, he's been in research his whole life and basically has done research in medical marijuana. My other brother ran CVS's for 12 years. So we feel like we have kind of an expertise to come to you and present ourselves as a possible dispensary. And so it would be okay to talk a little bit about what we would like to do for you as a company. Is this appropriate?
Well, I think what I'd like to do is get the public input on the issue itself.
Okay.
Because that's kind of the purpose of this evening. I think your presentation might be better served if and when we decide that it's something we want to do.
Okay.
There's a number of people here that we'd certainly like to hear from, but if we move forward with this, certainly we'll have many opportunities to present from a business standpoint your request, if that's.
Do you think it's possible that you're going to be trying to handle this for the current RFA, or is this something you think for more future?
I think that's too tight with the deadline of August 21st,
yeah.
whatever it happens to be. I don't see how we can get from this hearing to that point for those that might be interested. The next round of applications, which are, I heard something today from Mr. Crusoe in another meeting in another jurisdiction where these applications could be 3,000 pages. And cost
There's a max of
significant.
300, so yeah.
So and a substantial expense to put together. So given where we are in the process, we're probably, if there's going to be an affirmative decision, looking past the present deadline of August 1st for the submission of the 4 pending licenses as was described by Mr. Cruz.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I have folders for each of you?
Not at all. Any other members of the public have any questions or comments? Please come forward.
We did
Cindy?
indicate we would take any
Thanks.
written information as well on our notice, as well as any
Excellent.
information anybody wanted to present here today, so thank you.
Hi, I'm Cindy Weiner Palmer, 12 Tulane Avenue in Voorhees. I also happen to be in commercial real estate, and I am aware, somewhat, been to some meetings where, you're with Archer and Griner, right? Archer and Griner has spoken about medical marijuana, but there are certain towns that have not accepted it because of the confusion between what's approved federally and what's approved within the town. Maybe you want to expound about that a little bit, so
Bill, if you
everybody
could
else can
just come on up and-
understand that a little bit
Some
more.
towns have decided not to just because of what's okay. So
Thank you, Cindy.
The challenge here, this is the oddest thing I've ever encountered, both in my policy life and also as an attorney, that you have this situation where a state is saying, we're okay with what you're doing, and the federal government is saying, we're not. It's a real challenge in figuring that out. That said, what we're operating under is every other state that's done this is doing it fine right now. And the momentum moving at the federal level is that the federal government is starting to adopt slowly a lot of what we're starting to see happening in the states at the medical level. There are bills moving in Congress right now for the first time. Now, they're not on the president's desk yet, but they're moving in Congress on a bipartisan basis to recognize it. But this is still illegal at the federal level. And I can't provide for you any legal justification why we are doing what we're doing here at a local level or a state level, but we are. And it is not in any way going to jeopardize anything that this town governing body is going to do. The federal government's not going to be coming rushing in, because that doesn't happen in any other jurisdiction. That was a bigger issue a couple years ago, and there were some questions with the change in administrations coming over. Would this new administration, meaning the Trump administration, provide such a crackdown with the authority to do that? Would the U.S. attorney of the state and the U.S. attorneys newer? That's not going to happen. On the medical side, primarily, you're very safe. On the adult use side, again, in other jurisdictions, that hasn't happened either. But this is illegal at the federal level. What the state has done, the state has adopted a law that's been on the books since 2009. And at the time, since 2009, there have been 6 other jurisdictions in our state that have been fine with having a cannabis facility in their towns. You had, in our region, Belmar and Egg Harbor that have had them since really 2009, 2010, I guess, by the time they were open. The state has given the municipality the permission to allow this. And the federal government has basically said, we're not going to look. And that's the best way I can describe it to you. But there's no jeopardy here. The issue would be primarily that there would be some issue with the facility. They're so highly regulated. The state checks in on such a regular occurrence. You would have more of a likelihood of some criminal enterprise happening in some warehouse in town that has something unrelated to cannabis than you would for something happening with this that would trigger federal involvement where the state would be involved in any way. It just hasn't happened. The other thing I wanted to add while I was up here on that vein is, when you talk about opioid use, in every jurisdiction that's adopted medical marijuana, opioid use has gone down. And some of that is starting to make sense, and I think the doctor hit on this as well. We're seeing in pain management practices where opioids were prescribed at a very high rate. These doctors now have the confidence to prescribe medical marijuana, not to eliminate opioids entirely, but to reduce those doses down to safer levels. And I'm not the medical doctor, but I see you nodding in the back. We're seeing that in every jurisdiction now that has adopted medical marijuana. And that's a profound public quality of life issue. If we can tackle that issue too, and that goes to affordability, that goes to access and other things, and it goes to the level that you have been a pioneer, you have absolutely been a trendsetter, but more of your colleagues now are adopting this and feeling more comfortable because there are more people like you that have actually done this. So all of this is happening, but it is illegal at the federal level. That will likely change, I think, after the next presidential election, but it's still legal at the federal level.
Yeah, because I know of some towns where it would be well suited that in New Jersey, southern New Jersey, that have unfortunately turned down dispensaries or because of the federal law. Not that I'm personally against it, but
it may be the federal law, or it may be the excuse the town governing body's giving because they're not ready for this, and not every town is. And so the town has to decide if you're comfortable, and it's going to depend on who's standing in front of you, where they're standing, or where they're looking to stand with their location. You mentioned that, you're looking at that through planning board, which is smart. You figure this out the right way. And I think what you also heard from your town governing body here, which may be some of the folks that may be involved in the business to their detriment, you're not rushing into this decision, which I think is smart. You're setting your own deadlines, not allowing the state or others to set a deadline for you. You'll find your way and you'll get there. There's going to be a lot of opportunities. There's another round coming, following this round that's out there right now. So I don't think there's a rush, but the state has said, I think, in my opinion, rightfully so, we're going to let the towns make the decision on what works best for them. So Voorhees may decide to do this, Gibbsboro may decide not to. Voorhees may decide not to do this, and Winslow may decide to do this instead. And there may be benefits and there may be detriments to those decisions, but the town governing bodies can decide, like they do on everything, what makes good sense for them. And respectfully, with all respect to the federal government, their view on this is almost irrelevant actually right now. They've taken themselves out of this game. But that illegality at the federal level has become more of a technicality, at least for medical marijuana.
thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill. Any other questions or comments? That's why we're here tonight. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Council. Thanks for holding this. And thank you, Bill. This has been incredibly educational. So I come to you as the husband of a participant.
Just need your
My
name
name is
and
Jared Stamatellos. I live right up the road at 1004 Gregory's Way. And so my wife has had 3 complete reconstructive knee surgeries in the past 6 years. The first surgery that she went through, she was prescribed opioids, and she was taking this medication for 5 days. So having to give your wife this medication that she so clearly does not want because it makes her feel so awful is one of the worst things I've ever had to do. It was absolutely heartbreaking. The second surgery she had to go through, same story. Except this time, around the 3rd or 4th day, I was obtaining marijuana through a source that was not medical, but I knew it worked. I have plenty of friends who are doctors. She works for a pain management group in Pennsylvania at the time. So
You didn't hear that, right, Chief?
that's fine. I don't. She has a medical card now, so it's all in the house. I work in finance. I don't touch the stuff. It's okay. I appreciate that. That is. Oh, I'm sorry. The microphone went out. So yeah, 3rd time around, she now is a participant in the medical marijuana program. She was on opioids for 36 hours. It was an amazing turnaround. She was not only able to recover quicker, but she was able to recover way, way more healthy. She was not a drone stuck on the couch for a week. So after the 3rd day, she was up and moving. She was able to get up and actually function as a human 36 hours after having every ligament in her knee replaced. So I just wanted to voice my opinion and give a small note saying that I'm vehemently for this. I think that if it doesn't come to Voorhees, it'll go somewhere else, and we'd be missing out on a major opportunity. I have a personal friend on the town council in Somerdale, and I know they missed out on one, or they didn't miss out on it, but it was opposed and they passed on it. And I think, that's a missed opportunity. Just the money alone, we all know the money is there. You can't dispute that the money is there. So I think that you guys are taking a great, and ladies are taking a fantastic path forward on this. Taking your time and being smart about it is a good way to get it done safely and to get public opinion pushed in the right direction. So thank you.
Thank you, Jared.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Good evening, Nikki.
Nikki Shah, 8 Bird Street, Voorhees. We all know that this is medically proven that medical marijuana works. However, there is also an incentive for town, if I'm not mistaken. And I think Mr. Caruso can talk on that. I think there's an extra 2 or 2.4% of taxes that.
Yeah, Bill, if you could give us a little overview on the economics of it, if any.
I raised all the other rosy incentives. You want to talk about the dirty money? And Chief, you and I had a chance in the forum to talk a little bit about this. So there's 2 different levels of funding, and I will talk about adult use. So there's not a lot on the medical side, and frankly, I'm going to say a lot of us believe on the patient side that the medicine shouldn't be taxed. This law that passed allowed for a small 2% tax that will accrue now as the sales tax phases out. This isn't going to be life-changing money for the town. Now, on the recreational side, that's where things change to some extent. There is going to be money that's going to be raised through the state program that already is dealing with things that we deal with, the chief and his people have to deal with right now. We have people driving under the influence of controlled substances, whether it be cannabis, medical or illegal at this point, opioids, alcohol, NyQuil, whatever it might be. And with the exception of alcohol, there's no tests for cannabis. So what the chief and his office are required to do is use what's called a drug recognition officer that is trained to spot different types of behavior and then certify that there was something in terms of being under the influence. We don't have enough of those. We don't have enough drug recognition officers now, and we don't want you here, the citizens and the town governing body, have to pay for that. So one issue is where's that money going to come from, and it's not just the training; it's the overtime cost that the town has to accrue. So that that isn't going to come out of medical cannabis. We need that right now. That'll come from recreational cannabis that the state fees will fund. Here, and again, there's no law right now, there's no bill right now, there's a question of what's going to happen. The previous iteration of the law allowed for the municipality to levy its own tax on recreational adult use cannabis facilities, both retail, grow, and processing. If the city located a medical facility here, you'd get some benefit from that, although I don't know how long that lasts. There's a lot of push right now to remove that tax. But if it allowed for adult use recreational, it would allow for the additional taxation that the town can benefit from. But as I explained to the chief, there's going to be state revenue coming in that will help fund some other things, replacement of drug dogs, they can't retrain them, training of drug recognition officers, and some other types of different general revenue that will go. But I want to be careful here when I talk about the money side of this. This isn't life-changing money. This is another rateable in your town, and it will be. It's a job creator, particularly if it's a grow and processing facility. There's a lot of benefit in terms of, we've heard from a lot of your citizens that are patients that will have better access if it's here. But I want to be careful in that this isn't going to change. This isn't, millions of dollars in revenue in the town you're going to build a new school with. It's just not that kind of money. There on the adult use recreational side, depending on what you're doing, that's some money that might actually impact your budget to some extent. But I don't think the medical is going to drive tax revenue other than just being another rateable. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
I just wanted to, I've actually made a location map on Voorhees of all the different churches and parks and everything. I just wanted to give this to you as well. And just very briefly, I just wanted to speak on this issue. We've actually already put into our budget 2% a stake in the company for the town that we're located in. I don't know if other companies will do that, but just to speak on the economic impact, that's roughly $400,000 annually. That's up or down depending on the year, but we just wanted to share that with you real quick.
Thank you. Any other public comment this evening on medical cannabis? Thanks.
Yeah, the planning board did it. Thank you.
That's a good point. Any comments from our committee, or should we close the hearing?
Anybody else wants to talk? Anyone else?
Yeah.
We'll move to close the public hearing. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The public hearing for medical cannabis is now closed. We will be taking a very, very brief 2-minute break.